Okay. Let's see what we got here. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Excellent. Okay. I'm just going to mute everyone, just making sure everyone can hear me well. Okay. All right, so we'll start off with the questions. What are the best herbs or supplements to increase libido? So the number one I would say would be Icarin. Icarin is a phytochemical found in the plant called Epimedium, and we have a post on it, so you can look it up. But you know, it has the same mechanism of action as Viagra and things like that. I mean, it's just not as potent, but it increases blood flow to the male areas. And the other things that might help with male libido are things that increase dopamine. I would say something like, so after a male orgasms, let's say, for example, they increase prolactin and that decreases dopamine. So I think things that increase dopamine very well, with the exception of, nicotine, because nicotine is going to increase dopamine, but it also increases serotonin. Serotonin is generally going to decrease libido. So you want to think of it in terms of that. But something like exercise, I think, has a number of benefits for libido. It's going to increase testosterone. It's going to increase blood flow, increase dopamine, and it's just great. I think sun is very good. Increases blood flow. Has a whole bunch of benefits for. I'd say that that might help men and women. Also increases dopamine, the light, so getting a lot of light. I think these are the natural ways, just being outside, getting sun, getting a lot of exercise. And, if you have low testosterone for a man, you want to make sure, so I would test your testosterone and estrogen ratio, estradiol. See if you have high estradiol or low testosterone, because that might impact your libido. Otherwise, you might want to look at dopamine, to see if you have symptoms of low dopamine. We have a few posts on dopamine, so you want to read those. Yeah, I mean, those are the basics. If you want, like, just the stuff that you should look for first. Other than that, it might get a little advanced. I mean, there's also there's things like long jack, I think, or tongue catali. I think that's pretty decent. It's pretty decent. So I would say that might be a second. But again, you want to make sure that, like, if your testosterone is low, you want to make sure that you're getting enough zinc or certain minerals. If you're deficient in certain minerals, you could have lower testosterone. Yeah, so those are the basics. What else? I also think that for men, sometimes, like, going very low carb can dampen libido. Yeah, that's something to think about as well, but sometimes not. Okay. Hi, Joe. I was recently diagnosed with Hashimoto's. I'm a 27-year-old female with a recent Epstein-Barr infection. I was a vegetarian for the past 3 years, but after the diagnosis, I've switched to a lectin avoidance diet, and I have started to address my vitamin deficiencies. However, I still feel very fatigued and sick all the time. Below are the blood tests my doctor has done so far. I'm also waiting on the results for 24-hour cortisol and 23andMe DNA tests so that I can use self-decode and consult with you. Here are my questions. Aside from these tests and tests listed below, are there any other tests you'd recommend for my condition? Are there other autoimmune disorders I should be tested for? What are the most important lifestyle changes and supplements for my condition? I'd say this is something that would go on the group consult, which I'm going to get to and see if anyone's on for that, but after the questions. But this is definitely something for the group consult. But I could just, look over quickly and see if anything sticks out. In terms of Hashimoto's and having other issues, my theory is like this. There's generally a weak point in everyone's body. So for example, people with CFS, it's often the hypothalamus or the limbic system or the brainstem. There could be different parts that are even weak within that system. In my case, it's more the hypothalamus and maybe the limbic system in general. So if I get inflammation, my hypothalamus is going to get affected. Now, whether that's from antibodies or something else, no one knows. Just because I actually heard that CFS researchers were studying antibodies to the hypothalamus. I heard of a group that was doing that, and I had that theory a while ago. But after speaking to Jared Younger, he thought it was unlikely. So I thought maybe I don't know. But I think that's definitely a good theory that everybody has, whether it's antibodies or there's something attracting some inflammation to an area. It's not that relevant, but there's a certain weakness. In many people with Hashimoto's, it's just focused on the thyroid, and if you just take thyroid hormones, you should be generally fine. The problem is that if you have Hashimoto's, that means your immune system is probably imbalanced, and over time you could get other, if you're just, it's kind of like having one disease can increase your risk for a different disease. If you have higher anxiety, you're going to be more likely to have depression, right? So if you have a Hashimoto's, you're going to be more likely to have some other issue, because it just shows that your immune system is imbalanced. And people, the very common mistake is people will think if they're tired, they probably just have low thyroid hormones, where sometimes that could be the case, but usually people who are very tired with Hashimoto's have underlying inflammation that is affecting other aspects of their physiology. Could be their limbic system or whatnot. So if you still say you still feel very fatigued and sick all the time, I would say that it probably affected more than your thyroid. And obviously the vegetarian is a very big risk factor for these things, for autoimmune type issues. And Epstein-Barr can often be a trigger, but it's usually just like a trigger that causes your immune system to go a little haywire. And yeah, so basically I think that if you're still feeling tired all the time, and I'm assuming you may have gone on thyroid hormones if you were diagnosed. Let's see. Oh, you were recently diagnosed with Hashimoto's. Sorry about that. Okay. So you still feel very fatigued and sick all the time. I'm assuming that if you've been diagnosed, they put you on thyroid hormones still, even 2 months ago. So I think the question is, even with the thyroid hormones, you're saying that you're still tired, and so that's my response to that. Now, I could just give a quick glance of some of these things here and see if anything sticks out. I mean, your free T3 seems normal. I'm not sure if you're taking thyroid hormones. It's just it's something that this is something that I would need to, it's more of a consult type of question, but I thought it's important to get that out there. I've read a lot about receptors downregulating in response to drugs and supplements. I'm trying to increase acetylcholine, GABA, dopamine, and cannabinoid activation. So I've taken a lot of supplements you recommend on your site. However, I'm worried that all the supplementation will hurt me in the long run due to the downregulating of these receptors. Should I be cycling these supplements? Let's say I cycle through a different GABA supplement every day. Will that help prevent downregulation? Thanks. Honestly, the supplements, I mean, if you take anything, it's going to downregulate a lot of stuff often. So yeah, it does happen. But I mean, so as far as acetylcholine is actually not a risk for downregulation so much. So I wouldn't worry about that. As far as dopamine and cannabinoid activation and GABA, there is downregulation risk, but when it comes to supplements, they usually they work slightly, they work different than like something like a benzo. So benzo can cause long-term harm with downregulation, whereas the supplements usually don't. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Cycling things, I think that's I think that's a good idea in general. Like I'll have like a pill box, and if I wanted, I think it's just a good, you don't want to take like, let's say there's like, you have a list of 30 supplements you want to take. So there's certain things you're going to want to take every day, like things like that are basic nutritional stuff or that are, very safe. Like I would say something like carnosine is not going to cause any downregulation of anything. It's just like an anti-aging supplement. And that's something that I wouldn't mind taking every day. You just have to make sure you're taking enough minerals because, it can chelate metals. So there's certain things that you don't have to worry about with regard to that. The supplements are usually not going to be very potent in terms of GABA. So I wouldn't worry about that either, but it's probably still better. They have slightly different mechanisms in how they work. So if you wanted to cycle them, I don't think that's a bad idea for, let's say, GABA stuff. But cannabinoid activation, I wouldn't worry about anything except THC, and I would cycle it. I mean, THC is pretty much in its own class from what you can. I mean, there's ways to increase the cannabinoid system through natural ways, but there's nothing like THC to do that. And I think CBD helps with that downregulation issue. So that's why I always recommend taking them together. If you need to take it every day, if not, I still take it together, but you can take breaks. I think it's a good idea to take breaks. And so I'll take a break from THC for a while, often. And when it comes to dopamine, there definitely could be downregulation with that. That's why with dopamine, actually, my usually the most preferred methods are the things that are natural. They seem to have the best long-term impact, and they don't really, I mean, again, there even still could be downregulation with that, but it has so many other benefits that, and it's just done, like with dopamine, it's actually quite a complex system because you have different receptors, you have different transporters. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can affect that. So if you look at my most recent post on dopamine, you'll see that I just give you my top things that are more natural. I'd say nicotine is probably going to downregulate some stuff, but that's why I definitely cycle it. I don't take it every day, but stuff such as like getting a lot of sun, you should always be including something that increases dopamine in your day, whether it's exercise, sun. There's, you know, those two things are, you know, light and exercise are my favorite ways. There's obviously some supplements, but like if you take Mucuna, which has L-Dopa, it could, you know, could have some downregulation effect. But yeah, and I don't think it gets to. It just has a very different effect. Certain things that are supposed to increase dopamine, like, you know, the difference between Mucuna and exercise. They both increase dopamine, but exercise does it in a different way. It does other things as well, and I think there's a better synergy. Okay. Is it best to avoid vitamin D supplements? I know you recommend Thorne Basic Nutrients 2 a day, which has some vitamin D in it. Just curious to get your thoughts. I think it's good to include, you know, a small amount of vitamin D. Um, I think that the Basic Nutrients 2 a day, I think, is a good one. Um, I do think it's good to include, like, again, people will take like 20,000 IU. I'm not in favor of that. I think unless you need to get your levels up and you absolutely cannot get sun, then you got to do what you got to do. It's, you know, it's better to have normal vitamin D levels than low vitamin D levels. So you want to just track that and kind of see what fits with your system, because there's a very large variation. Some people need to take a high dose. Some people need to take a low dose, and it depends on a variety of factors. For me, I actually don't need, you know, even when I wasn't getting that much sun, I didn't need to take that much. 2,000 IU was fine for me. Now, something like 500 IU a day or something like that, I think is good. You know, it's the reason why I take it internally is because even though when you're getting it from the sun, you're gonna get vitamin D. I mean, the other way, we've always taken in vitamin D through seafood. So, you know, there's certain foods that you can get vitamin D in, mainly seafood. But most of the vitamin D you're going to definitely want to get from sun, and taking a small amount, I think, you know, the vitamin D on the gut has an impact, and I think having, like, you know, small doses of vitamin D that's directly hitting your gut might have. I just think that it might have some kind of impact. Like, it gets distributed in different places based on whether you take it internally, or it might be that it's, you know, that might be the case, or if you get it from the sun. So I think most of it definitely should be from the sun. Small amount is not bad to get from either food or supplements. As far as the supplements go, you know, just, you know, it doesn't have, you know, most people don't get enough. Forgot exactly how much vitamin D that the basic one has, but when I made that recommendation, I was just with the understanding of, like, this is probably what most people need. But you know, yeah, it's something individual, that it depends on how much sun you're getting, where you live, things like that. What impact does vitamin D have in the gut? So I wrote a post on TREGs, T regulatory cells, a while ago, quite a number of years ago. And basically that helps create tolerance to different proteins. Now, it won't necessarily make you unsensitive to food, but it helps with tolerance of different things. You know, your immune system might be less likely to react. So your gut uses vitamin D, vitamin A, and DHA in order to create that tolerance. Now, you know, I'm a big fan of DHA, or fish oil, and most people are getting enough vitamin A, and then what's left is pretty much just vitamin D. So if you have those three nutrients, you just want to make sure you have those three nutrients. If you're getting a lot of sun and you live in you know, southern climate, like, let's say 32 degrees latitude or below, you should be fine without any vitamin D. Since most people in the United States are not at that latitude, taking a small amount is good. And even if you are, you're probably not getting a steady dose every day of sun. So, um, you know, like I said, there might be some benefit to having a little. So I don't mind taking a little internally. I'm not like one of those people who are just like, you need to take a lot of it every day, or you shouldn't take any of it because it's a supplement. I just think like a small amount is not going to hurt you, and it might help you in some way. And if it's just part of a supplement, then like why not? Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm very big into sun, of course, and getting sun every day at the right dosage. It's everything's tough. You can't do everything right every day. You got to just try to pick your battles and do the things that have the biggest impact for you. You want to definitely you got to find the things that have the biggest impact, because there's very few people who can really live a healthy lifestyle every day. There's always going to be trade-offs, and I haven't, just to live every day a very healthy lifestyle, and it's pretty uncommon. What happens when you take too much vitamin D? Lara is asking. Nothing. I mean, it's not how much you take; it's how much is in your blood. So if your vitamin D levels go too high, that's probably not good. Over 60 nanograms per milliliter. There's probably more risks. I've seen risks. There's some things with over 100 is where it starts getting like somewhat toxic, and I wouldn't recommend that. But from 50 to 100, there's just some theoretical risks, and like I've seen some studies which show like a curve for mortality. I've seen a study that after 60, mortality starts increasing actually, but it's hard to predict these kinds of studies. They're not like clinical trials. So, there's no clinical trials what happens if you take too much vitamin D, unless you take a absurd amount. But again, you just want to measure your blood. You want to get it to between 40 to 60, and you're fine. Yeah. Is there a better avenue to contact you or your team regarding problems with your website? Emails to contact@selfhack.com just bounce back. Well, first of all, you want to email content, not contact. That's number one. You find broken links or other problems that I would like to point out for betterment of the site. Yeah, please do. But I don't know what the best avenue to do so would be. You should email content@selfhack.com, and that's the best way to do it. Let's see. And yeah, we appreciate any kind of feedback. We're trying to always make things better. And if anyone sees any kinds of bugs or broken links or anything like that, you can email us and we'll take care of it. So for your supplements page, has a link for a recommended brand of Trehalose, but this product is not pure. It has stevia and monk fruit in it. As a consequence, when I used it in your recipes, the food came out way too sweet. Okay. I made several bad batches of your hemp and cricket protein cookies with progressively less and less of this Trehalose before I figured out what was going on. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Like if I yeah, it's hard to coordinate everything. If I recommend a certain amount of Trehalose and then I happen to recommend a different brand somewhere else that has some stevia or something, then that could be a bit sweeter. So yeah, it's probably not one. It's not gonna work out for a recipe or something like that. Please make the Trehalose link point to a pure Trehalose product. It probably so what happened is, we had a lot of links going to Amazon initially, just because we want to just stick with one site. in general. It's just like, okay. And that's where I guess some people like buying it the most. It's just, you know, Amazon's somewhat convenient, but they did screw me over, and they screwed over a lot of other people I found out too, like Sam Harris, Dave Rubin. I saw them tweet that they got screwed over. And basically what happened was they just, you know, if you break any small rule of theirs, and basically they have this long list of terms and conditions that, you know, you got to look through it with a fine-tooth comb. They could just knock you off, and then they don't pay you for like 2-3 months. And so and then I tried to do it again, and they were just like, I tried to sign up again, they were causing problems and stuff like that. And the truth is, they just screwed me over. So I don't think they might be a good company for consumer, but they're just not a good company. They happen to be not a very ethical company to deal with in that department, at least, which is surprising because it's Amazon. But I wasn't the only one who got screwed over. They screwed over quite a lot of people. And so after trying to deal with them for a bit, I decided not to. iHerb is a very good company. Like, I'll buy supplements from iHerb a lot, and I buy it sometimes from Amazon. iHerb has a lot of benefits that Amazon doesn't. When you get a supplement from Amazon, you're getting it from their warehouses. They don't control the temperature much. iHerb is more designated for supplements, so they're much more aware of, like, let's say, controlling the temperature. With Amazon, you're just getting it from a warehouse, who knows where, that, you know, it could be like 90 degrees in the warehouse, 100 degrees, who knows. They're not like regulating the temperature or something like that. So there is benefits. In terms of cost, they're about the same. And in terms of variety, Amazon's a little better. That's really why I was linking to Amazon sometime in the past. But you know, iHerb has almost all the supplements. It's really just like, you know, 5% that Amazon has and that iHerb doesn't. So generally, I just link to, you know, and Amazon doesn't even want me to link to them. You know, they wanted me to take off all their affiliate links, and just, yeah, they're just not a good company to deal with. So all the links generally go to iHerb, unless there's a specific supplement that I like. Like, I like the CBD from Elixinol, so I link there, for example. So you can't even buy that on iHerb. So there's exceptions, but basically, iHerb is a great place to buy supplements. And you know, we could try to, you know, you could email us about the link, but they might not have a Trehalose. You might, like, for that one, if you want pure Trehalose, you might go to Amazon or something. Or you can look at iHerb and see if they have a pure one. Let's see. Let's just quickly look here. But, you know, taking Trehalose with stevia or monk fruit, it's not a problem. It's just going to make it a bit more. Let's see. It's going to make it a bit more sweet, of course. This is an interesting one. Actually, I didn't see this one before. D-ribose and modified citrus pectin. Not a bad one. I like both of these ingredients, and D-ribose is also sweet, but it's not going to be too sweet. Modified citrus pectin, you're not getting a lot of it, but you're getting a fair amount of it. This is not a bad one. If you want something less sweet, this is definitely going to be less sweet here. We can link to this one on the site as well. That's a good point, though. If you're like making a certain recipe that we put in there, it's going to be a good point. I'll just save that. Okay. Okay. You said you do a type of meditation that increases dopamine. Can you explain this meditation to us? I think I mean, I probably was saying like, I just do a certain type of meditation, and meditation can help with dopamine rather than like I do a specific meditation to like that specifically increases dopamine. Um, I guess, certain ones, like if you're going to do a loving kindness meditation, I don't know if that's going to increase dopamine so much. I think yoga is probably going to be helpful in general, but in terms of the type of meditation I do is more of, I'd say it's more of a mindfulness meditation where I just like, I just kind of like let the thoughts, I just let the thoughts come and go, and I just like kind of relax and just kind of view my thoughts, or yeah, I just, it's kind of like a relaxation plus just mindfulness meditation. So Preston says, I think most meditation and mindfulness training, guided visualizations, almost all increase dopamine. That's probably true. So I don't think that it's, I didn't mean any kind of meditate. Like, I didn't mean like, oh, you need to do this specific kind. Just the one I personally do. Everyone has a different one that works for them. The reason that this one works for me is because you could really just do it anywhere. You don't have to like get in a certain position. Like if I'm just sitting in a chair and I just want to, clear my thoughts, I could just sit back and kind of meditate for a few minutes or whatever, or just lie in bed. Yeah. Because of low COMT, I try to avoid quercetin in my diet. I try to consume a lot of polyphenols and flavonoids, but I read that quercetin is the most frequent flavonoid in food. So it seems I can't do both. You're not getting that much quercetin in food, though. I wouldn't worry about that. Do I miss something, or do you know a solution to this dilemma? I'd say that you're not going to get a lot of quercetin in food, enough to inhibit COMT too much. So I wouldn't worry about that if it's just coming from your diet. Okay, is red palm oil allowed on lectin avoidance? Yeah, sure. And most oils are, because they're not, even, some oils can do different things. I mean, some can stimulate your immune system a little, but in general, oils don't have any of the proteins that a lot of plant-based foods have. It's not the fat part that generally causes problems. So I've never really found any significant problems from any oil that I've ever tried in terms of just food sensitivities. Now, some people might be sensitive to too much omega-6. And so you want to, you just don't want to have too much of omega-6, but red palm oil is more saturated fat. Some people don't do well with too much saturated fat, so it more has to do with the fatty acid content than other things. I mean, olive oil, I'd say olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, is going to have a lot of polyphenols in there. And that's something that might cause, but, in general, it's, I haven't found any significant reaction from any oils. Since my chronic fatigue started several years ago, I'm sensitive to light, have blurred vision. Okay. Accumulating floating spots and clouds in my sight. Do you know what causes these issues, and what can I do? That's a somewhat common symptom. And, inflammation or dysregulation of the limbic system can cause these issues. The sensitivity to light and things like that. Often, when people are sensitive to light, they might be having inflammation, and that would make sense for people with chronic fatigue. It could sometimes have to do with less acetylcholine. But yeah, there's generally like, sometimes people, I often see like, often people with a mold issue can start getting some of these issues. Again, it's from like inflammation. and that inflammation could affect the optic area, the optic nerve, or the eyes in different ways. There's probably changes in neurotransmitters like dopamine that create more of a sensitivity to light, things like that. I'm not sure of the exact mechanism, but I do know that it has something to do with inflammation or dysregulation of the limbic system. Okay, my health report says I have an overactive 5-HT2A receptor. Is this determined from my symptoms or my gene mutation? It might be from your symptoms, or it's probably more from your symptoms, but it could also be from a gene mutation. Reading the article, 5-HT2A receptors, the related SNPs, okay. Can't see that overall my SNPs caused increased activation of 5-HT2A receptors. Yeah, that's going to be, a lot of that is weighted towards the symptoms. Most of it actually. So I don't know which specific SNPs can cause it. We might not, we probably don't even have all of them. Just in your, genetics report, or that not all of them have been studied, or, you could also have an overactivation from like inflammation or some other things. So with that often, if the symptoms are enough to say, it could be enough to say that you have overactive receptors, and then we show you your genes for that and see if there's any genes that are bad for that. So you also have overactive 5-HT2C receptors. I would look at the symptoms of these and see if you match up, how much you match up. But yeah, I can't tell you specifics of which genes you have without like looking at your stuff. But I would say that it's possible you won't even show genes. It's just, you might just have the symptoms. Thank you for all the fantastic information. I'm enjoying the research. However, the more research the more confused I am becoming, and the more complex I'm finding. My health report says I'm low in dopamine. It lists the genes responsible for this as COMT, DBH. But I don't understand why. My COMT variations are the cause of lower dopamine. Could be. I wouldn't say this variation is going to be the cause of your low dopamine, actually. This is more like a medium producer, and it's in a certain area. Yeah, I'm also undermethylating, which the article says inhibits COMT. So overall, aren't I likely to have lower COMT and this higher dopamine? Well, dopamine, like I said, is quite complex. There's a lot of different genes, a lot of different. You could have higher dopamine and lower receptor function. The health reports are very weighted towards your symptoms, and we took it off on. We took a tab off of it. I mean, the link still works. It's just that we really need to work on that, and before everyone can get a benefit. But it seems like you have enough symptoms that you're able to. It was able to tell you a good amount of stuff. So it's working mainly by the symptoms. Let's see. So just reading the rest of the question. My health report lists the substances for low dopamine. There's only a small number of substances listed in the article. So does this mean that substances listed in my health report are the ones that could specifically help me based on my gene variation? Not necessarily, no. I wouldn't say that. Actually, it depends. Yeah, I mean, let's see. Health report says mucuna, cyclic AMP, methylfolate. Yeah, I mean, you could use both. You could use some of the recommendations there, try them out, or you can try to use the recommendations in the post as well. When it comes to the recommendations, we're trying to fine tune them, and you know, in terms of like from the site. But if you're just, you know, I would say you can try the natural supplements. I also give you the top ways in one of the dopamine posts about dopamine and success. So you can see mine, which I did just discussed earlier. All right. It could be that we're recommending certain things. Let's see. Yeah, I would have to look at your report and see what's going on. It gets quite complex, and just seeing, you know, just giving like a um, you know, a summary here, it's hard to figure it out. But yeah, I would say that in general, it's going based on the symptoms, the symptoms analyzer, and you want to try to yeah, you want to do both. You might like you don't want to necessarily recommend fall strongly on the recommendations. It's just like some, you know, things that we're toying around with, trying to uh, give you recommendations. But the stuff that increases dopamine is probably going to be a good guide. Can you please tell about your supplement regimen? What kind of supplements do you use to be at top of your game? I think the reason why I haven't put in my regimen, I actually had a regimen post from a long time ago. I took it off because it wasn't actually very accurate for my current regimen. And also, I'm a little hesitant. I think some people use the site in a way that I don't intend. I think supplement recommendations are something that you want to research and take things that are suited for you. Um, so, you know, and sometimes people read a post on like the benefits of a supplement and they're just like, oh, I got to take it, even though you know, it's quite complex how it interacts with your physiology. So really the best way is to try it out and see how you feel, but you want to start with things that you think might help you the most. Um, but I do think it's a very individual kind of thing. For me, I've spoken about a number of times what I like the most. And again, I noticed that a lot of people don't necessarily do well with the same things. Like, for example, I do well with pregnenolone. A lot of other people don't. So I think, you know, some people could cause insomnia. A lot of people cause anxiety. It's something that's very individual. So, but I can tell you, I do well with butyrate, a lot of butyrate stuff that increases butyrate. I do well with so the Hymes and butyrate supplements. I do well with long beta curcumin has been a staple. I do well with anti-inflammatory supplements in general that are not immune stimulators. Andrographis is pretty decent. Olive leaf extract is pretty decent. Icarin is pretty decent. I'll often cycle these things. I do well with inositol, but a lot of people don't notice an effect from that. Some people notice a profound effect. I actually have been meaning to release a post on my regimen, and hopefully I'll get that out sometime. But in general, let's see what else I do well with. I mean, the regimen, I happen to do very well with exercise. And it wasn't always the case, like, that I did very well with exercise. Like, when I was having more inflammation, exercise wasn't so great for me, like weightlifting. But now that my inflammation is lower, I actually do very well with weightlifting. But I have to do it in a certain way. If I do it too late, I'll get insomnia. If I do it in the morning, it's fine. But I just have to be careful about doing it too late. But yeah, exercise, whether it's yoga, whether it's walking, they all the different exercises have different effects. Sprinting, I just like weightlifting. Tell you what, when I do weightlifting, I started doing weightlifting in the past month. for me, that like makes me, weightlifting is going to increase endorphins a lot, but like yoga is much more relaxing. I'll feel very relaxed after yoga, of course, and then after weightlifting, I feel jacked up. Like, yeah, weightlifting is much more powerful if you want to increase testosterone. I think it's going to be more powerful to increase dopamine. I feel it's one of my best things. Like if I'm doing a lot of socializing, or if I'm, going on a lot of dates or something like that, I find weightlifting just makes me like, I don't like the term, but it makes me more of an alpha male, even though I dislike that term. But yeah, it makes me more motivated, more just more energetic, and I do very well on that. Actually, interestingly, I need less sleep when I'm doing weightlifting, which is a little odd. I think it's because my dopamine becomes more active, and but yeah, I mean, I don't overdo it. I just do it like 2 or 3 times a week, and I do it for about a half hour each time. So it's really only like an hour and a half of weightlifting a week. And yeah, I think I definitely noticed like an increase in testosterone, and just more confident after. And I only started that recently. I don't know why. Like, I guess I was always hesitant to do weightlifting because when I did that in the past, like let's say 4 years ago when I still had some inflammation, or more, let's say 5 years ago, I would have some negative effects from it. But once you reduce your inflammation, I think it's very good. If you're having inflammation, something like yoga is going to be better. Probably it's going to be that I used to do a lot. I stopped doing that. I should probably start it again. I think, let's say, something like yoga is going to also help increase oxytocin more. So each exercise does a little bit of a different thing. Certain things like sauna and sun are kind of, even though they're not exercise, of course, they stress the body in a similar type of way. So you don't want to be doing everything. You don't want to be getting a lot of sun in a day, a lot of exercise, a lot of, go in the sauna. I kind of just pick which one I do for the day. I'll do like, okay, I'll exercise or one day, and I might go for a walk or something like that. Or let's say a different day, I might just go for a walk and do yoga. If I really should do more yoga. I don't do enough of it. But some days I'll just do like a sauna, or I'll do push-ups. I'll do pull-ups, or I'll do a sprint. I kind of get into different cycles depending on how busy I am. If I'm very, very busy, often just like walking on my treadmill desk and doing a sprint is all I'll do. Maybe a sauna. But I think, part of the regimen, it's not just like a supplement regimen. I mean, I know you're asking that actually, but I think I just want to emphasize that your exercise regimen or your other regimen is probably more important. I focus more on that than I do on my supplements. Yeah, I think that could often be more important. But as far as supplements, I think it's, like I said, I focus on things that are just like anti-inflammatory. And then I'll also focus on things that, I look at my diet and I see what I'm deficient in. And so things like calcium, potassium, even copper sometimes, depending on if I'm taking in enough vegetables. But copper is often found in grains, and I don't eat grains. So copper, just taking a small amount of copper, I'll do that. But from my diet, I'm getting enough selenium and zinc, so I don't really need to supplement with those. I will take zinc once in a while, or just a bit, just because I think it's a good supplement, even taking in higher doses. Same with magnesium. But I probably don't get enough magnesium. Magnesium is often found in whole grains. So I think you want to start from the basics, like lifestyle regimen, and then like basic nutrition regimen that complements what you're getting from your food. So depending on your diet. But if you're on the lectin avoidance diet, it is going to be deficient in things like calcium because you're not taking in dairy. It's going to be deficient in, it depends how much of vegetables you eat, but I think magnesium is always a good thing to take. Potassium, some copper if you're not eating enough plant-based foods. And you could also be deficient in a B vitamin here or there. Depending on if you're taking fish every day, you might want to supplement with DHA or fish oil. So I fish oil is in my regimen, definitely. I'm a very big fan of fish oil, even if I'll eat fish as well. It's just something that I think is good, for me at least. Okay, but I'll release my full regimen. Another thing I spoke about a lot is CBD, and I'll do THC once in a while, a few times a week, or if I eat something bad, and I've been eating a lot of bad stuff lately. What else? Yeah, like nicotine I'll take 3 times a week. I consider that part of my regimen, but I'll do things like kind of on an as needed basis. Like if I find I'm getting too much estrogen, I might lower the pregnenolone a bit. Interesting enough, when I started doing weightlifting, I found that I needed less pregnenolone, which is very interesting. I think because it increases like your hormones a lot. So taking pregnenolone, I still take some, but I just found that if I don't take it, I actually don't even notice much of a difference if I'm weightlifting. So I think that's what I'm saying. Even the same person, the same physiology, if you're doing one thing, you might not need something else. Lately, I've been researching oxytocin a lot, and I'm kind of getting into. I think I was for a while deficient. I think I do very well with things that increase oxytocin, and the reason, yeah, I mean, like I generally have a very high need for oxytocin. I think like a good way to think of that is if you're someone that likes being in a relationship, or if you like cuddling, if you're like a cuddling type of person, I think oxytocin is a good one. Like, so I'm I guess it's, I'm a cuddling type of person. Everything that increases oxytocin, I like a lot. Like I love massages, and massages are very good for oxytocin. I'm actually working on a post about that. Again, I don't know when it's going to be released, but I think like even for long-term relationships, I think oxytocin is a bonding hormone, and it increases. I think like I think it can benefit a relationship, but I also think that if you're not in a relationship and you have like a high need of oxytocin, you'll start to feel lonely, or especially if you're more stressed. I think if you're stressed out, you have a higher need for oxytocin. But like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I just noticed that, like, for example, when I was in a relationship, like I didn't need to do things. I didn't really need to do a lot of stuff that increased oxytocin, because kind of just being in a relationship, having someone to cuddle with or something like that, that can decrease your need for oxytocin. So even something like that, it's like my regimen will change. It's interesting. My regimen will change just based on if I'm in a relationship or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for example, a good example is like yoga is going to increase oxytocin more than probably weightlifting. So if I'm not in a relationship or I'm not dating much, I'm going to have a higher need of oxytocin, and I'm probably going to want to like maybe get more massages or do a lot more yoga or meditate. Whereas if I don't need to do that stuff as much. So yeah, I mean, like a lot of these things are quite complex, and that's why I'm saying, like, what my regimen is, it can change from month to month based on what's happening in my life. Do I have more stresses, right? If you have more stresses, then I have noticed that, like, Also, not only stresses, it's also like if I'm, let's say, I don't get in. Let's say I don't get into a state of flow because, like I said in a recent post, I get distracted a lot now, so I don't have like time to just, I can't just like lock myself in a room for a day and do something without distraction. I'm distracted all the time, and I think that actually increases the need for oxytocin, which is interesting. So, I could do meditation, I could do yoga, um, I could do different things for that. And so I think it's important that I have these things in the toolkit. I also think it's important to understand mechanisms often. So it's like, okay, um, and these things are advanced. I just think it's a continuous process of learning and, just reading posts and things like that. Over time, you'll understand things better. But I think, yeah, like just from month to month, it could change based on a variety of things. Like, what I'm like I said, if I'm, it sounds a little weird. Like your regimen changes if you're in a relationship or not, but it's true. If I want to be more extroverted, I'll do a different regimen. So I'm in a mode now where I need to be more extroverted, and so that's why I'm exercising more and I'm doing weightlifting. I find that that's very helpful. I might take more nicotine as well. Pregnenolone is not bad for that as well. I think if it's not going to give you too much anxiety. So let's see what else. Yeah, so I'll try to release a post on that, but I just wanted to kind of give you some examples of how, my regimen can change just based on whatever. If I'm like, another example, I was in San Francisco for 3 weeks and I was eating out 3 meals a day. Like I hadn't had, like every single meal was just eating out. I was taking more CBD and THC. So I was taking like a decent amount of THC every day because I was taking more like 2.5 milligrams instead of maybe a usual dosage of 1 milligram. And that's because to reduce the food sensitivities, if you're just eating out a lot, there's dairy in some stuff, and it's very hard to just eat out. And like there's going to be there's like soy sauce, and I can't be too anal if I'm eating out all the time. So definitely, when I eat out, I need to take things that are more geared towards food sensitivity stuff. If I'm, being very extroverted, if I'm, it all depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. But yeah. Okay. DMSO hailed a cure-all. What's your take? I don't think it's a cure-all. Have you tried DMSO? I haven't. I probably should. Something I was actually thinking about just trying for the sake of trying it. But it's more like just to chelate heavy metals, and I do take a good amount. I do take some things that will, chelate heavy metals. So this is another example. Like, if I'm eating a lot of fish, I might want to take lipoic acid to chelate heavy metals. If my diet changes for some reason, I could then take a different different nutrients to supplement that. But yeah, so I don't have any need for DMSO. I don't have heavy metal issues. And even if I did, I would take something lighter like lipoic acid or NAC. But lipoic acid is very good. Carnosine is a light one, something I like. We're releasing a post on, or maybe we even, yeah. I know we finished the post on heavy metals. So DMSO is in there. We should be releasing it any day, or maybe it has been released. But I know we finished that. Okay. I'm using Jaime's 50 grams a day for 2 months and not feeling any different. what effect should I expect from high maze? So, if you're not feeling any different, you should, number one, try to take more. If you're still not feeling any different, then it might not be something that helps you that much. Like you might have enough butyrate in your large intestine, or you just don't have as high of a need for butyrate. I'm not sure what your situation is, like this is something, I'd say it's like, it might go into a group consult because I got to understand more of what's going on. But definitely 50 grams is not going to be enough it might not be enough to feel something. I don't feel something for 50 grams now. In the beginning I did. Now I don't. But that's something, you could take up to 120 grams or even 150 grams and see if you notice anything. And then you can go to 50 grams as a maintenance dosage if you wanted. But if you don't notice anything from 150 grams, you might be one of those people who don't notice anything from anything, or it's just not meant for you. Best ways to manage stress without using supplements or drugs. I mean, I've spoken about this. I think a Zen attitude, which is, I don't know, for me, Alan Watts or John Kabat-Zinn, they pretty much describe that. I basically turned to that. It's pretty deeply instilled in me now. But meditation is a good one. I mean, yoga is a very good one. Happens to be things that increase oxytocin are generally good. So, certain things that increase oxytocin are going to be like getting a massage is obviously going to be good for stress. Yoga and meditation, exercise is good for stress. Like high intensity exercise is good for stress. Being in a relationship I find that it helps. But let's say if that's not possible, obviously you can't control that so easily. Let's see what else, like non-supplements. I think sun is a very good one. So making sure you're getting enough sun. It's very calming and relaxing. I think, what else do I do? I think making sure you're getting enough sleep is going to be very important. Making sure you're taking care of your sleep and circadian rhythm. I'm more prone to stress, obviously, if I'm not getting enough sleep or something like that, or if I'm not, so not enough sleep or not good enough quality, or if you're like disrupting your circadian rhythm constantly, it's not going to be good for stress tolerance. I think like blocking out light at night might help as well, but that's part of the circadian rhythm stuff. What else? For other people, people have different things that help them. Like there's different meditations you should be trying out. They can help you different amounts, but mindfulness meditation is pretty good. And I think the biggest thing, obviously, is just trying to structure your life in a way that, like one thing is, if you're, let's say, it depends what your stress is from also. If you're, let's say, if you're working at a stressful job and you don't like it, that's going to increase your stress. Like if I didn't like what I was doing, that would be much more stressful. So I think just even kind of configuring your life in a way that is less conducive to stress. If you have that, negative or bad people in your life, if you have a narcissist in your life, you got to get rid of that person. I don't associate with people who are psychopaths, narcissists, or just generally negative or bad people. So, something like that is something that people don't think about. Often people embed themselves in like a stressful relationship or stressful work situation. So I think, simple thing is to get rid of the stressors as best as you can. Obviously, that's not very easy, but depending on what it's coming from. And then something like essential oils is pretty good, like jasmine and lavender and frankincense. You can rub it on you. You can inhale it, put it in a diffuser. Lavender and jasmine actually increase oxytocin. So that's why I said a lot of things that increase oxytocin happen to be anti-stress. And yeah. Okay. Someone asked here, are oils okay even if you have PPAR, alpha, G, or CG? I think, I think oils are okay. I mean, yeah, I think they're okay. It all depends on the dosage. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of factors going into that. And it's not only oils, it's also what kind of oils I think is a very significant factor. I wouldn't, I don't know if like any single snip would determine if you should consume any oil or not consume any oil. It's going to have a very different effect, which oils. What supplements do you think is crucial for people with CFS? That's a loaded question. Something I learned is that everyone with CFS is different, which is very interesting. You have people who just very random. It's like a lot of people who just, the supplement, fixed 40% or 50% of my issues, and it's just like a random supplement, like a random nutrient. For example, let's say I spoke to someone recently who did very well on coenzymated B2. I don't know. It's just like, if I recommended that to, probably 95% of people wouldn't respond to it. It just seems like people do well with random stuff. I mean, not random. It's just different stuff. And that's something that's very interesting that everyone does. I mean, now there's things in common, of course. But if you're just asking for a supplement, that I'd say haven't found any like clear patterns on like, okay, this supplement is going to be great for you. Yeah. But let's see, is there any, I mean, your best bet is like anti-inflammatory supplements, but it all depends on the situation. That would probably go in the group consult. What is the best method for vagus nerve stimulation in your opinion? Probably cold exposure. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, cold exposure is another good one for stress tolerance. Same with saunas. Saunas and cold exposure. I didn't mention that before, but I just got reminded of that. And that's also good for vagus nerve stimulation. So actually a lot of things for vagus nerve stimulation are going to help with stress as well. So if I could just pick one, probably cold exposure, like acute cold exposure. Okay. How can I best detox remnant toxins, and how can I compensate for this going forward? So this person was on lots of prescription Tylenol for 40 years, and they have a certain SNP here. I wouldn't, taking enough glutathione. Taking enough glutathione is probably just, if you want one thing to help with detox, it's probably the best thing. Or like NAC or something. And also broccoli sprouts. Definitely recommend broccoli sprouts. I've been on a ketogenic diet. Okay, Got a good amount of questions here. I'm going to get through all of them. It doesn't look like we're going to have time for group consults, but we can do that next time. Been on a ketogenic diet for the last 4 months. I have been on a more restricted version, qualifying as autoimmune paleo elimination. I believe my cholesterol numbers are somewhat higher because I am keto. My neurologist wants me on a statin, if only to prevent inflammation. I want to get a detailed cholesterol test done, and my neurologist agreed to write a prescription. Trouble is, he doesn't know what to say, nor does Quest Diagnostic Labs when I call them to get the wording. What should I ask for specifically to get meaningful numbers that can be interpreted by a functional medicine practitioner? There's a couple, blood tests for, like, what you're really thinking about is things that are for like heart disease. You're thinking about, like, you want to try to prevent heart disease. So LPA, ApoB, these are often tested. C-reactive protein is high sensitivity, is very important. And the what is it called? The NMR lipoprofile is going to test for the density of your cholesterol. So you could see, if it's dense or less dense. I think that's very useful. So those are going to be pretty important. In addition, besides, let's say, just regular cholesterol levels, I think you're going to want to test that. Oxidized LDL is going to also be important when it comes to, just like risk for heart disease, like how high of a risk you are for heart disease. I think this is a good question. Yeah, so I would test those things. Okay, I'm Th2 dominant. In a self-experiment, I tried doing a water fast, quit by day 4 because my body felt extremely hot, my hands and feet were burning, and I got heartburn symptoms. Still got this burning sensation and heartburn a lot after quitting the fast. My allergies did not change, probably because the 4 days diet was not long enough for my immune cells to be cannibalized for fuel. How do I get rid of the heat and heartburn, and why do I get it in the first place? I don't know why. That's not a very common reaction, but I'm assuming that it might be like a compensatory reaction, like when you're fasting a lot. Generally, going to get colder, but your body may have compensated. I don't think it has anything to do with the allergies and Th2 dominance, but I'm not sure. It's an atypical reaction. I haven't seen that. From my Substance Explorer, the first natural substance recommended is choline. How do I find out why this is recommended for me? You click on, you could see, like, there's a button next to it that shows you all the potentially problematic genes that it interacts with. And so you can, that's how you're going to see why it's recommended. Let's see, the health report is going to be more based on symptoms. So if they don't agree, it's just because one is based more on the genes, one is based more on the symptoms. So they often are not going to necessarily agree. But they're kind of there for you to, if you think that it might help you for other reasons, it's just something that, you might want to try out. If, they're not like, you must take this. It's just like, just see what happens. If you're trying out supplements anyway, you see what happens. If you're someone that, is not trying out supplements and you just like, it's just a point in its favor and you want to keep that in the back of your head. But it's, I wouldn't view it as gospel or anything. I just would just take it into account when you're thinking about which supplements to try. And the most important is just seeing how you feel, of course. If you don't notice the difference, then you probably want to stop taking it. Or obviously, even if you have a negative effect, you definitely want to stop taking it. Hi, Joe. In your article on nicotine, the link to the nicotine you use doesn't work. Could you tell me what it is, please? Um, I don't really have a nicotine that I, yeah, I mean, I don't, hmm. I buy it in different places. I'll just tell you which one I use right now. I use snus, S-N-U-S. It's the one I use currently. The lozenges or gum is easier to get, but I get a better effect from snus. And it's Nordic Mint snus is the one I use. And I either get it online or you can get it in certain stores. What would you recommend for the best antioxidant to take? That's that's a good question. I think in terms of antioxidant, like glutathione is obviously the one that you're going to start with first. That's just going to be the one that you're gonna like. That's the master antioxidant. So if you wanted to take an antioxidant, that would probably be a good one. C60 is pretty powerful, but less studied. If you want something just more safe and run of the mill, go with glutathione. Now I'm more confused. Further to my question, all right, we're gonna skip this one because it's a lot of details here. Is there any way to contact your organization? Content@selfhack.com or support@selfdecode.com if it's for self-decode. I've joined Self-Hack VIP, but haven't been accepted onto the Facebook. I use an alias. Could that be a problem? We got some people who started posting spam. So we're going to start vetting people more. I think, yeah, just basically people go into the group and then they start trying to promote their own products, and it's not meant for that. Like, if you want to promote your own products, go for it. Do it somewhere else. The group is meant just for self-hack and self-decode support and questions. But you can email content@selfhack.com if it's for the VIP, and you will get a response. You'll be fast tracked. That we'll look at your thing quicker. Sometimes there's a delay. Since my 20s, chocolate gives me tension in neck and shoulders and a bad headache starting at about 10 hours after eating it. Disappears about 6 hours. The last 2 years, I've got the same problem with curcumin. Is there a chemical correlation? Probably not. And if so, does this bring a solution? Curcumin is a fix for many of my gene risks, so I would be happy if there was a way to build up my tolerance again and not having to avoid it. I don't see any correlation between. I can see why chocolate gives headaches. I don't see. You could be getting inflammation from it. I don't know why curcumin would give you a headache. I'm not sure. I haven't heard that curcumin giving a headache. But I don't see. I mean, curcumin could be polyphenols, but I doubt it. Like curcumin is a polyphenol, and chocolate has polyphenols in there. So it could be the polyphenol structure. But in that case, you might react to EGCG and other kinds of polyphenols. I'm not sure. Look, if you have any kind of SNP here, this person has a certain SNP and they're afraid of a certain diet, it's just something you want to keep in mind and see how, if you're doing well on a keto diet and you have, let's say, the SNP, just keep it in mind and see if you're doing well on the keto diet. That's the most important thing. You don't want to look at an individual SNP because the body is very complex to just look at individual SNPs. They're just kind of like, something that you can keep in mind. I wouldn't go too crazy on it. So this one says, this personalized health report has Th1 dominance, low dopamine, underactive 5-HT1A, yada yada, okay. orexin, low orexin. Okay, inability to lose weight. Okay, let's see. What supplement best to take for this combination of issues? This is more of a group consult question. We don't have time to get into it now. We went over, but next time we could get on the group consults. Let's see who is here anyway. It's fine anyway. It's a little too late. I actually, yeah, I gotta go eat something before it gets too late for me. 7:22 where I am. Okay, so yeah, I like some of the questions that were asked were more geared towards a group consult. I do the group consults for people who are on the VIP, and if we have time for them. Normally, we just had a large amount of questions this time, so you know, we went overboard just even answering the questions. But when we have time, which is usually, I'll do the group consult, and if the person is on, lipid subparticles. I'm not sure what the question is here. But anyway, you can ask it in the questions section. I can get it to it next time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, I appreciate your support. And I look forward to next time. Have a great day.